support, and they need support in a lot of different ways during this pandemic and with the school situation, the educational situation the way it is. But one of the ways they need support is in being a co-teacher or being a teacher of their kids, facilitating their online or hybrid learning. So today, Tracy's here to talk about teachers' tricks for parents, how to encourage and sustain children's motivation for learning. So welcome everyone. And before Tracy gets started, we're going to remind you about the 2 ways to engage. I've said a lot about the chat so far. That's the primary way, and it's yours. When you have a comment or you have a question, you want to respond to somebody else in the chat, you're welcome to do that. And we will use the chat to be able to have conversation. That's how we have conversation on these webinars. The other way for you to engage is to raise your hand. And if you raise your hand, you will, Dean, who's here from Be Strong Families, helping us with all the, just everything going smoothly, advancing the slides, any tech problems that emerge, she's got all of our backs. And she will unmute you, and then you'll need to unmute yourself, and then you'll be able to speak. So those are the 2 ways to engage. And we want to also remind you, those of you who are coming back, and let you know, those of you who are just joining us, that whenever Be Strong Families does anything, we have agreements. And this is in recognition that we have hosts and we have co-hosts, but that the dynamic nature of this and the productive nature of this and the safe nature of this and the learning is all because we co-create this space together. So we need all of you to be here now, not multitasking, to treat other people the way you want to be treated. That includes no caps in the text so that you're not screaming at people. And we really want to know what your experience is. And if you can be generous with us and share from your head and your heart about what's going on for you and for the families that you're working with, some of you, that would be great. So yeah, if you agree with these agreements and you can help to uphold them in this hour that we're together, do like people are doing and put "I agree" in the chat. That also gets you warmed up for chatting. So, and with that, I'll just turn it over to Tracy. Welcome, Tracy. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm looking forward to this.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to be here to be able to share some teacher tricks for parents with all of you. I want to stress that this time is really as stressful as it can be. It's also a huge, exciting opportunity for all of us. Even though we all are juggling many things, it's a great opportunity to be more involved in our kids' education and be able to spend more time with our children and be more attentive and present with them, even though there's the obvious stress of having to multitask and things like that. We're going to give you some tools today to make this a more hopeful opportunity and to keep your kids' education hopeful, inspiring during these challenging times.
Hey, Tracy, I have a question because I noticed you said to keep your children's education hopeful, inspiring, and challenging during these unprecedented times. What do you mean by challenging?
Well, no matter what type of education choice you're making for your children right now, there's a variety of options that we're going to talk about. There's ways that you can help your student, whether they're doing online learning or hybrid or homeschooling, that can really help facilitate your kids' education in a more positive way. And where you can also be very responsive and aware of what your child is learning and how they're able to learn best.
So are you saying that challenging is a good thing in the context of learning?
Absolutely, yes. I certainly meant that as a good thing. So for me as an educator, I've been an educator for 15 years, and I feel like creating challenging opportunities for students is the number one thing that I try to do through art classes. And any of you who've taken any of our little art webinars here with Be Strong Families, notice that it's pretty high level. And that's very similar to things that I am bringing to elementary students right now, as far as the caliber of information. you'd be incredibly surprised how much kids can understand. And to me, as an educator, I'm as concerned as kids for kids that aren't being challenged enough, as I am for kids that are having trouble. A lot of times when your kids are distracted or having behavioral issues, it's because they're not being challenged enough or they're bored. So, really raising the bar is kind of key to keeping kids challenged during these times. And you can do that in a variety of ways, no matter what mode of education you're currently choosing, and no matter what changes happen along the way. And that's what we're going to discuss today, so that you guys can be responsive to your kids' education and have this be like an excellent opportunity this year for learning, and looking at things in a new way.
Yeah, I think the other thing you were saying, Tracy, implicitly is that one of the things that causes behavioral issues or lack of motivation or, just not being engaged is if students aren't challenged. And the other one is if they're overwhelmed and they can't keep up and they don't know what's happening and they can't get assistance to have some success in
And I
this.
think we kind of naturally pay more attention to students that appear to be struggling, as teachers and as parents, where often our students that are gifted or, at grade level or, are not having performance issues, can just as easily get lost, by not being challenged. So it's a two-way street, and they're both, it's good to be mindful of both.
Thank you.
We can go to the next slide, Dee. So this is, we have 75 million students who are not in school, which has never happened. And that was from an article I read of Professor Doug Harris from Tulane University, who's studying the impact on this. And we can go ahead to the next slide, but just thinking about that for a second is pretty staggering. So parents, families, and students and teachers are in an unprecedented struggle, which also presents a unique opportunity for education during time of COVID. We're seeing a lot of really important and interesting innovations. And I just want to kind of go through some of those with this Sunday morning clip. So Dee, if you could play that when you're ready.
Challenges abound for stay-at-home students trying to learn online. And for all too many of them, there are no clear answers. Erin Moriarty of 48 Hours offers a crash course.
17-year-old Joshua Lind thought he had his life all mapped out. A junior in a Baltimore public high school, he was on the road to a top college and a career as a lawyer.
Going to go to law school, pass the bar, be like you, Miss Erin. I had all that planned out.
And then in March, without much warning,
all public schools in Maryland will be closed.
I've ordered the closing of all schools in the state of South Carolina.
We're going to be closing all public schools across the state.
98.8% of our schools have closed down.
No one truly had a plan in place for students to, succeed or continue that learning at all.
Lynn and students throughout the country, including those in college, were suddenly forced to go home and learn remotely, either through online classes, paper packets, or lessons on TV.
It's hard to understate how big a deal it is.
Doug Harris, a professor at Tulane University in New Orleans, is studying the impact of the coronavirus on schools.
You have 75 million students who are not in school, which has never happened, not at least in the last century.
The pandemic has only broadened the inequities that already exist between students. With so many now at home without computers or internet service, educators fear that as many as a quarter of them are not engaged in school at all. And how well is it going for those who are?
Every student going into every grade level has missed out on instruction. No matter how hard we're trying, it's just not the same.
Jessica Rutherford is a teacher and reading specialist in Vero Beach, Florida, who works mainly with 3rd through 5th graders who struggle with reading in a school where most students live below the poverty line.
You have 30 students. About how many would you say are doing pretty well under this, and how many are not?
I would say it's about 50%.
Only half.
So this particular
and that may be because to many students, she is now just a voice over the phone.
They don't have someone there, sitting side by side with them, coaching them through a lesson or helping when they get stuck. And so, it is heartbreaking because you just have to stop and wonder, okay, now when do we make up this time?
Her work days feel longer because they are.
Thank you for reading with me today.
There are meetings with parents and with other teachers, all while she's home taking care of her own 2 children.
One ball.
Including a 5-year-old son, trying to learn remotely as well.
There are days where I'm just like, okay, what else? Like something has to give because this is just pure craziness, the expectation.
Aren't all teachers in the exact same boat as you are?
I don't have a doubt in my mind that there's a teacher out there that isn't giving it everything they've got, but you just still feel like you fall short.
Falling short while children fall behind. That's what also worries Kimberly Dukes, a parent who lives in Atlanta, Georgia.
The primary years and the early years are the most critical.
Duke's children range in age from 3 years old to a senior in high school, but she worries the most about a middle child.
My elementary kids were sent home with packets of work. But what I noticed was the work wasn't for each individual student. So my baby that's in 5th grade that's reading on a 1st grade level, this work is not gonna help him. And it actually broke me down and I've cried because I actually see how my children are hurting. The inequities are much more bigger than ever before.
Yet the greatest pressures may weigh on the students themselves, like Joshua Lynn in Baltimore.
We've always been told that colleges look at your junior year, make sure your grades are on point for that junior year because that's all they're going to be looking at. You can't expect students to properly succeed in those environments that catastrophically change in a matter of days.
As he has always done, Lynn juggles his job at a fast food restaurant while taking 7 rigorous classes, all now online, which means less help from teachers.
I don't think that I'm doing my best that I can. So I'm a student that values feedback.
He often works late into the night and early morning when uncertainty looms large.
It definitely has got me thinking, what's next? What is going to be put in place by, the people in charge?
There are no clear answers because even educators don't know if schools will return to normal in the fall.
There may have to be adaptations in the schooling environment, possibly, running shifts of students, a morning shift and an afternoon shift.
And even then, Doug Harris says it will take time for some students to recover what they lost, as it did in New Orleans in 2005 after Hurricane Katrina forced schools to close.
It was about 2 years on average. That last word, on average, is important, though, that different students are experiencing this very differently. The students who are in the best situations are those who can do what we're doing right now. They have a computer and they have an internet connection and they have a quiet room. They don't have obligations. They're not taking care of their younger siblings while their parents are at work or sick.
But remote learning has made one thing very clear, as noted by Hollywood writer Shonda Rhimes in a viral tweet. Few people will ever take teachers for granted again.
Oh, I 100% believe that. There's nothing quite like the connections we have at school.
Joshua Lynn can't wait to get back.
I definitely think that this has actually have motivated me to go even harder and, to strive more and to become the person I want to become and even more.
All right. So, there's lots of options and we're going to talk about, what you can do for your specific family. So we can go out into the next slide. So today we're going to discuss educational opportunities for all of us and our children. And you could go to the next one, Dee. So step 1 is to understand that there's no wrong answer. Like right now, we all have to do what's best for our own families. And I think part of the difficulty is there's so much information out in the world and we're all listening to each other, which is good. But what we really have to do first and foremost is everyone has to look at their own particular situation, their own children individually, and decide which modes of education are available to you and what is specifically best for your own kids and your own family dynamic. That's going to look very different for different people. Some people are going to be able to homeschool. Some people have to work and are going to have to find other ways to be able to mitigate online learning. Some school districts are opening up to hybrid in the next month. At least that's what they're saying. So, everyone has to decide for themselves. And I encourage everybody to really just hone in on your own kids and your own experience, looking at, the COVID information in your specific region and just really focusing in, first of all, on what's going to be best for your own family. And then we can go on to the next slide. There's no wrong answer is the point. So choosing an option, whether it be online education, homeschool, pods, or hybrid learning, these are kind of the 4 basic options that are available to everyone. And some of these options are not available to everyone. There's been a lot of discussion about, equity in education and how COVID is exacerbating, existing problems in the educational system, just like it is just like it has in the healthcare system. The fact that everyone doesn't have universal healthcare, is really more the problem than that COVID is the problem. It's just that COVID is exacerbating these things. And I feel the same way, as an educator, but no matter what you choose, you can make this a huge opportunity for your students and your children at home. And all of these options are a good place to start. So we're going to go ahead and watch another video that's going to just quickly explain the difference between these for those of you that haven't heard about all of these options. So when you have a moment, Dee, just go ahead and play it.
And nearly 36 million American children are out of school right now in at least 35 states. And in Boston, today was the last day of in-person instruction for the 54,000 public school students there. Tomorrow, all schools will be closed until at least April 27th. Joining me now is Dr. Brenda Cassellius, the superintendent of Boston Public Schools. Thanks so much for joining us.
No problem. Thank you.
Obviously, this was a difficult but necessary decision and one that districts across the country made last week. Why did you decide to wait?
So we have been assessing the evolving situation for weeks now and watching that in collaboration with the city and with the mayor of Boston, Marty Walsh. And as we were able to see the situation evolve, really Wednesday was a very different day in the country with the president's address and the restrictions on travel, as well as the NBA closing down for their season. And then more information coming out across the country. And then we had our first confirmed case at one of our schools. And then we decided to take this swift action to keep our students, our staff safe.
And of course, you have students who do not have access to internet or technology at home. How will they be able to learn remotely? And what kind of assistance will you be able to offer their families?
So we've just had such an overwhelming response from our community, our philanthropic partners, as well as our city partners. And so we were able to purchase 20,000 Chromebooks for our students and then deploy many other thousands of our existing Chromebooks already in our schools to our students to send home for virtual learning. Again, this is not required learning. It's supplemental learning that we're providing to try to bridge that gap and loss that we know that will happen.
For parents of nurses and doctors, clearly we need their heroic efforts in hospitals. What will you do to support them so that they're able to stay on the job and have their kids have a place to go?
Yeah, so we've been working with our community-based providers as well as some of our teacher volunteers and others who have said that they want to pitch in. We are working with our city partners right now to coordinate efforts in order to try to figure out new solutions. Again, this is unprecedented waters and time for all of us, and we're trying to figure out just how to do that with the other restrictions that we have on not groups of more than 25 and social distancing and really just learning all together about how we meet those really important needs.
What kind of tips would you be able to offer parents who may be trying to work from home and now have the added responsibility of taking an active role in their child's education, all the while their kids are confined to these close quarters and in many cases, I'm sure, bouncing off the walls?
Yeah, I know as a parent how it feels to really have kids, on summer break or after school and trying to help them with their learning, especially if it's your older kids and you haven't done that work for quite a while. There's a lot of really great technology and software online for parents. Our parents in Boston and anyone else really can go online and look at www.bostonpublicschools.org. Many of your school districts have information as well on their websites. I know my colleagues are working super hard and our staffs are working hard to get these resources up. There are paper resources also for parents who do not have technology. That we will have resources for families who are not yet speaking English and need support. I know that we are in conversations with Univision to try to get those resources out as well. And then students with disabilities, what we're doing is working with families on a one-to-one basis to try to figure out what makes sense for each of our students with disabilities during this time, to figure out what we can actually do. We've never done this before. And so, these answers are coming to us, and it's really great to see people innovating.
Certainly need that innovation, and especially for parents like me, we don't know how to do that new math. And so trying to teach our kids that, a bunch of us we're talking about us here. But thank you so much for your time, Dr. Brenda Cassellius. We appreciate it.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos.
All right. So, that was just looking at Boston. And again, you guys, we all have to look at our own situations locally for not only how to react and respond to what's happening, but also to understand what our resources are locally on the ground. So no matter what mode of education you're choosing for your child right now, and a lot of people have to decide locally here, we have to decide by September 1st if our kids are going to be in the online education or if we're homeschooling or doing pods. On the West Coast, people have had to make those decisions a few weeks earlier. But regardless, you're going to be able to take advantage of resources in your community. And there are tons of people that are coming together to create innovative ways of working out some of the issues that we all know are happening, whether that is, creating resources for underserved families and working parents, or whether it's addressing issues for special needs kids that really do need one-on-one attention. There's people that are doing this work in every community, and I really encourage you guys to try to seek those people out and create a system of support. So we can go ahead to the next one.
I wonder what Boston...
And nearly 36 million American children.
What was that, Karen?
I mean, I guess I was wondering what Boston is doing now, because that video was obviously...
Yeah, that was old.
March. So I wonder, over the summer, and I know that we've talked about this on this webinar in this format before, there's a lot of people doing a lot to knowing what happened in the spring, people
Right.
worked really hard over the summer to prepare for the fall. And I wonder how that's different, than what they did in the moment.
Well, and it's interesting. I feel like a lot of the innovation is coming from smaller school districts, like in the research that I've done. It seems like the larger monolith, like Chicago Public Schools, the big city school districts are having a lot of trouble kind of figuring things out, where I'm finding a lot of inspiration and creative ideas coming from Central Illinois and Southern Illinois, from very small school districts, because they've kind of got more agility and ability to be able to be responsive. I feel like there's less red tape. So, I would just be adventurous in your own research about what you need. And there's so much available to all of us online. There's a bunch of really wonderful Facebook groups for moms. You can just search them and all over the place. So, but, I really want to focus on these steps that are going to be able to help you no matter what you're doing, whether you're setting up your kids' space at home for a completely digital experience, or whether you're setting up your own pod, or whether you're just homeschooling your own kids, there's, these steps can kind of like cross all those borders. And, I'm hoping that it can help all of you kind of find some solace and some hope in the situation. Because I really, as an educator, I do feel hopeful about this, even though I'm also a parent and I'm also overwhelmed as an educator and parent myself. This step 3 is really important. When you're creating your space for your students, you really want to integrate visuals like daily schedules, reminders, and support for structure, because kids need structure. Organization and repetition to learn is essential. And you can also make it fun and interesting. And I always feel as an educator that my job is to not just, espouse information and have kids regurgitate it to me, but I have to like be this like weaver of magic, and I have to like enchant them and into like learning about the world around them. And I certainly do that with creating an environment, whether it's in an actual school or in my home right now. And it's a lot harder for us to enchant our own kids as parents, because you're their mom or their dad, you're their caregiver. My daughter is far less enchanted by me than other kids, and that's kind of par for the course. So don't take it personally, but also don't let it stop you from really leading with love and compassion. Our kids need that. And whatever we can do to integrate a little magic into this time for them is really, really vital. And you'll also get that right back, from their love and energy. So we're guiding them by example, but it'll also come right back to you. So we can go ahead and go to the next one, Dee. So step 4 is getting support. So get support from family and education-based organizations. Be Strong Families is a great resource. I'm sure all of you have been looking at these webinars frequently, as I have. Your child's school and school district, even if you don't like the particular way they've handled things, or if you have concerns, there's still probably a wealth of information and resources through the school district and through the state. And what's offered and the laws and everything is going to vary completely on, where you are locally. But you can, no matter where you are, you can get support, especially with the power of the internet. So I encourage you guys to really focus on that. I'm going to talk about Khan Academy, and we're going to watch a short little video on it. But Khan Academy is a tremendous, tremendous resource. I've been using this. Khan Academy started in 2006, I think, and it's a web-based free educational resource that I've particularly worked in under-resourced communities for my career, and Khan Academy is like a staple for everyone because it's innovative and self-paced online education. You just set up an account for your child. It's a really great way to evaluate where they're at academically on a variety of levels so that you can know where they're at, for where they're at with English and reading, with where they're at with math. And it just helps give you a baseline. And it's also focused on mastery versus just, like teaching to the test. It really, the way they format everything is based on the kids really being able to master things before moving on to the next level. So I'm just going to show you this little video, and that'll give you kind of an intro to Khan Academy if you're not aware, but it's a great opportunity for everyone. You can use this to brush up on things if your kids are having academic trouble. You can also use it as an inspirational tool because there's so much wonderful information in there for kids that need to be a little bit more challenged.
Remember when school was, well, school? We sat in our classrooms, pencil and paper on our desks with our teachers up at the blackboard. Traditional education is still very much alive and well, but a growing number of students are finding a new way to learn, and it all starts by logging on. Did you know that over 7 million people are taking at least one course online? That's right, the digital classroom is the next big thing. And today, it's our big conversation. Our first guest, Sal Khan, really got the ball rolling back in 2006 when he founded the Khan Academy. Well, if the image of bricks, ivy, and a bustling quad come to mind, you're on the wrong homepage, because this academy is all online. And I must say, this school is really, really cool. So please welcome the founder of the Khan Academy, Sal Khan. Wanted to interview Sal for quite a while, so I'm so pleased that you could be here today, Sal.
No, it's an honor to be here.
Well, so let's talk a little bit about you and your background. You grew up in Metairie, Louisiana. Tell us what your childhood was like and what it was like growing up there.
It was a fairly normal, my mom raised us as a single mother, and she kind of had odd jobs here and there, but my sister was a really strong student, and so she kind of was a big role model for me. But yeah, it was went to Grace King High School, and it was overall a nice place to grow up. Meanwhile, you went on to MIT and then to Harvard Business School, right? And obviously not very smart, poor Sal. And so what did you start doing after you graduated from HBS, as they call it? Yeah, my first career after undergrad was I worked in tech, but then I went back to business school, and after business school, I found myself, I was an analyst at an investment firm. And you probably thought you were going to stick with that, and then something happened. It was in 2004, it was my cousin, Nadia. Her and her family had visited up in Boston after my wedding, and it just came out of conversation that she had just taken a placement exam after 6th grade. They were tracking her into the slower math track, and her mom didn't go to school in this country, so I don't think she fully appreciated what the implications might be for Nadia later on. And so I asked Nadia, hey, what was the problem? It was unit conversion. And I said, hey, I think you can get this. How about I tutor you when you go back to New Orleans? We'll get on the phone and use the internet, whatever we can do. And then I started working with her younger brothers, and then word got around the family that free tutoring was happening. And so I found myself working with about 10, 15 cousins every day after work on the phone, instant messenger, whatever else. And one friend said, hey, to help yourself scale up, why don't you record some of your lessons as videos and put them up on YouTube? And I immediately thought it was a horrible idea. I said, no, YouTube is for cats playing piano. It's not for serious mathematics. Unit conversion, that's right. But I got over the idea that it wasn't my idea, and I gave it a shot. And yeah, long story short, those videos, my cousins, they famously said that they liked me better on YouTube than in person. And it took off from there in a very serious way. When did you realize, wow, this could be a really big idea? Because here it went from helping Nadia with her math exam to being a huge, huge enterprise. I mean, did you have an aha moment, Sal, when you thought, wow, this has scalability, as they say? Yeah, I think it was in early 2007. Obviously, my cousins liked them, and I kept making more content. I saw the view count, and I saw it growing and growing. And then comments started to come in, and those first comments were just, simple thank yous. And even that was a big deal. I don't know how much time you'll spend on YouTube. Most of the comments are not thank you. They are somewhat... I can attest to that. Oh, yes, you probably. Yeah. But then the comments got more intense. This is why I was able to pass algebra class. This is why after leaving the military, I'm able to re-engage and go back to college. I remember, in mid-2007, I got this letter from a mother, and she said both of her sons had a learning disability, and this was the only thing that was allowing them to keep pace with their class. And you're like, wow, just putting this stuff out there, and there's people all over the planet that are actually, their lives are being changed in some way. That was the moment that there's something here. And then the viewership just kept growing and growing and growing. And by 2008, 2009, it's kind of, it overtook my life. And in fact, you've got some pretty impressive supporters. One in particular named Bill Gates. And he got involved with the Khan Academy early on, didn't he? Yeah, in 2009, I quit my job. I set this up as a not-for-profit, hoping that someone would notice, someone would support this. I think whenever you do anything like that, you start a little optimistic, and about 9 months went by. No one really supported it. We're living off of savings. And then in the summer of 2010, all of a sudden, one of the first early supporters sends me a text message. Her name's Ann Doerr, and she says, I'm at the Aspen Ideas Festival. Bill Gates is on stage. Last 5 minutes talking about Khan Academy. And so I was actually running a little summer camp with some middle school students, so I immediately boot the nearest 7th grader off of a computer, and I start looking for some evidence of this thing. And yeah, it was Bill Gates talking about, Walter Isaacson, the head of the Aspen Institute, asked him what he's excited about. He started talking about Khan Academy, and 2 weeks later, I got a call from Seattle. It was Bill Gates' chief of staff, and he wanted to meet.
And he has largely financed the Khan Academy?
He has been one of, amongst others.
Because the classes are free.
Yes, we're not-for-profit, 501c3, philanthropically supported. The Gates Foundation has been a major supporter. Google at around that same time reached out. Many other, Broad Foundation. I could go on and on. There's been many, many people to help support the effort.
And so what does it look like today? I mean, how many courses do you offer? How many teachers do you have?
Yeah, so where it is now, there's 5,000 videos on Khan Academy, but at least in our mind, that's not even the meat of what it is. As soon as these other foundations reached out and said, what would you do? We said, well, videos are part of it, but we want an interactive platform. People should get unlimited practice, feedback, tools for teachers. So now we're a team of 60 people, and we're reaching 10 million students every month.
Wow. That's great. And how many different courses?
Right now, it's pretty much every subject, especially in math, from kindergarten through early college, calculus, statistics, physics, chemistry, biology. We have a huge art history collection, history. So our goal over time is to cover everything, but already in a lot of the math and science, we're pretty comprehensive.
That's amazing. And you don't want to replace the traditional classroom. You're really hoping to augment students' learning or give them an opportunity to learn something they might not have access to.
No, that's right. And out of the 10 million students who use this every month, 1 million are in formal classrooms. And the whole point here is I never imagined that this is somehow about, people imagine online replacing physical. That's exactly not what we believe. We believe that in a world where students have access to information at their own time and pace, they can get practice problems at their own time and pace. It allows the classroom to do richer things, to have conversations, do projects, do simulations. So the teachers, there's 300,000 teachers who use Khan Academy, and they've all told us that they feel liberated. They get to do more with their students. And every week we get letters from people all over the planet, and it's what gets us up in the mornings. Pretty exciting.
Beats working at a hedge fund, doesn't it?
Yeah, that was nice too, but this is better.
Anyway, well, thank you, Sal.
And that was a huge point at the end. Khan Academy was never intended to replace, in classroom learning, but certainly how I've seen it used over the past 10 years in particular is for self-paced learning in the classroom, in person-to-person classroom. Kathy and I were talking about this earlier too, how there used to be a lot more opportunities for self-paced learning in the classroom. And this is a great way to do that. So if you have, kids at different ability levels, Khan Academy is a way to keep those, all the kids enchanted at the same time. And again, it's just like an incredible resource for also kind of gauging and evaluating where your students are at throughout the year. So let's go ahead on to the next slide.
Remember when school was,
So step 5, this is really important. And this is something that I feel like a lot of people are missing in their plan, is creating a behavior management plan for both discipline and rewarding behavior. Creating this in advance keeps you from just being reactive instead of responsive to your child's needs. Every kid is different. So, if you really are attentive to this, it's going to make all of everything easier. Some kids respond to things differently than others. So you're going to have to do this individually for each of your children. And you're going to have to make adjustments along the way. But, a little bit of, rewarding things can go so far, even just with how you create your schedule. So right now I have a pod of 6 kids, and I structure things so that I have the activities that the kids really are excited about intermixed with things that are a little bit more challenging and academic. And I use the exciting things like creating galaxy jars or, slime or doing a hands-on activity as kind of bait to get them through some challenging writing or reading or math activities. And I also use those activities in conjunction together. And that's, part of my behavior plan is that I'm staggering things so that I can keep kids enchanted. A behavior management plan isn't necessarily like what you're going to do when a kid is bad. I feel like that's always what people think, but it's really about creating this kind of holistic situation for your kid to be able to succeed. And, it doesn't have to be like physical prizes. That's the other thing. Like, I'm really into like having my students be an active part of their classroom environment. And you can do that at home too. In my classroom at school, kids clean up and they participate in all aspects of our classroom as like a machine. It's not just me following them around cleaning up after them. That would never work. So I'm doing the same thing at home and with my pod, and so can you. So a behavior management plan isn't just mitigating, kids when they don't want to do something. It's also, putting things in place to make it so that you're rewarding good behavior. And that can be, you'd be surprised what those rewards can be. It can be like, you get to be the line leader, or like, you get to help, mix the slime first, or what have you. It doesn't have to be like giving a kid a physical object or like a monetary thing. It can be like, you get 30 more minutes of screen time than you would normally have, So, and again, mapping this out ahead of time for each of your children is going to save you so much time and lost patience in the end. It's really worth it. And you're going to have to make adjustments along the way. So just be responsive. And again, we want to lead everything with love and compassion, just like we want everyone to lead with love and compassion with us as parents and teachers right now. And it's also really important that you make sure that the expectations are understood by your child and that each of these, behaviors and goals are achievable, so that you can mark progress and so that they can understand in real time, what good behavior looks like. We can go to the next one. So this is a huge one. This is understanding Common Core standards for each of your children and what each of them is required to learn for the next year to be advanced to the next grade. In general, there's 5 branches of learning that are required, state by state. Some states require more than others, but in general, it's English language arts, health, and some sort of gym, fine arts, math, and then science. And there might be particulars for each of those, but the Common Core is a set of standards that helps you understand what is grade level appropriate to reach, basically what level for all of those 5 branches that your kid needs to be at to go on to the next grade. And it reads a little bit like IKEA instructions. Like it's not very soothing. It's kind of a little difficult to understand. But if there's resources out there that'll help you do this. And it's really, if you really look at it, it's pretty straightforward, and it's going to help you know what your kid needs to know in all of these areas. And this is just a quick little video on Common Core. It's just 3 minutes. It'll help you understand what that is. We throw this phrase around a lot as educators, and you can look this up, on the internet for each one of your children. It'll help you tremendously.
It's so crazy, Tracy. I'll wait till it's over, but then I have something to.
You've heard teachers, parents, and even presidential candidates talk about the Common Core state standards. But what is the Common Core? The Common Core sets down what students should know and when they should know it in English language arts and math. In other words, the standards are a set of academic expectations for children. Some folks think the Common Core is better than what states have used in the past. They say the standards help provide students with a deeper understanding of academic materials and help provide a more appropriate preparation for higher education in the working world. However, others strongly disagree. Critics say many curriculum materials don't line up to the Common Core, and there's skepticism about the extent to which the standards truly impact student achievement. At its peak, Common Core was adopted by 46 states and the District of Columbia. That number's declined by a half dozen states or so. Pinning down the exact number is hard. Sometimes when states say they're dumping or overhauling the Common Core, it's not clear they actually are. Now, let's talk about what the Common Core is not. It's not a curriculum, it's not a test, and it's not a federal program. Sure, the Common Core influences curriculum, but you won't find a master instruction manual telling teachers how to teach the Common Core. Yes, students are tested in English and math at least once a year in grades 3 through 8 and once in high school. And exams are supposed to match up with the Common Core in states that use the standards. But you won't find a quiz or a test anywhere in the Common Core. President Barack Obama's administration encouraged states to adopt the Common Core through federal grants, among other things. And some folks think the administration went too far with that. But Uncle Sam didn't pay for the standards or write them. And you won't find a federal law requiring states to use it. Still, you may have heard various federal politicians and other candidates for national office say that they'd end the Common Core, as did Donald Trump. But states adopt content standards. So unless the president signs a bill outlawing the Common Core, Washington can't get rid of it. So for now, Common Core is here to stay in the states that want to keep it or change it. And you can expect to hear plenty more about it from both sides.
I was just going to say, Tracy, that I think it's interesting. I never, when I had young kids, I never knew, it was a mystery to me. And I kind of delegated it entirely to the teachers to teach my child what my child needed to know. And it just occurs to me, if I had it to do it again, even if I were sending my child to school and not homeschooling or not doing pods, I mean, outside of a COVID situation, I would want to know what was supposed to happen, you know, and be able to support it at home.
Right.
So.
And I think that there's some, you know, I think this is another benefit, like we talked about, you know, I had to look up the Common Core standards for my first grader, you know, when this COVID thing happened, because I normally teach high school and college. So first grade is not like in my purview of anything normally. So, you know, I totally get that, but I think it's also helped me, you know, connect with my child and be able to understand what she is working on and like what's expected of her. And I think that it's a really great way for all of us to kind of tune in. And again, this isn't a curriculum. It's not going to, unfortunately, it's kind of mysterious. And that's like a lot of the criticism of it is it doesn't show you how to teach these core concepts. But you can look at these concepts and then you can Google things. You don't have to go buy, there's tons of curriculum online right now because it's like a huge business for people to be able to market to people like us right now. And I'm not saying that a lot of those programs aren't phenomenal, but there's kind of been like a lot of people popping up out of nowhere, you know, all these like educational consulting groups and things. And you can look this up yourself and then be able to evaluate those programs based on real solid information. So I think this is extremely helpful. And again, your state might have additional standards that in addition to Common Core. So go ahead to the next one, Dee. So step 5 is to integrate hands-on and creative play as learning experiences to reinforce learning. So, you know, people think that high school kids aren't going to be interested in activities for some reason, and that's nothing could be further from the truth. So I encourage you guys to all use YouTube and Google to find interesting hands-on activities to demonstrate complex ideas. That can be as simple as like using, M&Ms to help your elementary school child learn math or manipulatives, or creating, making some Play-Doh with flour and water. It doesn't have to be extremely complex. This morning we made Dawn dish soap bubbles with my students, and we made, huge bubbles and talked about that. So there's ways that you can integrate all of these things into keeping it fresh and making it so that your kids want to learn. And that's going to help whether you're, no matter what form of education you're using. So
I'm thinking with high schoolers, there's a lot of music that's critical of society, right? And the lyrics are, refer to historical events, or they refer to patterns. And you could have students research, you could have kids in high school research, what's the background on this? What's the justification? Even if back in the day, I was just, anyway, it's just an idea, like in terms of how you use something that they're currently interested in and currently paying attention to be able to dig deeper, to learn more,
Exactly. And it can be a simple project. You can use recyclable materials and have them, dump a bunch of recyclables onto a table and with some adhesives, and teach them how, tell them to create something with it, whether it be an invention or, an art sculpture. It's, kids are naturally creative, and the more that we inspire them to, be creative and outside of the box is going to help them. And we can also, as adults, really like drill down into being creative and creating these opportunities for them as well. But even just doing one of these things a day will really help your kids stay engaged. So Dee, we can go on to the next one.
You could do that with mindfulness too,
Absolutely.
I'm saying, like, just like what color with paint and paper and canvases, and just like, what color are you feeling today and why, you know what I mean? Just to get people the social emotional part of it.
And even just the relaxing, like we did mandalas the other day, and the kids just, literally colored mandalas that were already created for them. And it was just this like mindfulness, like peaceful space. We put on some classical music, and they just, kind of got in the zone for 20 minutes, and it was really beneficial for everyone. So, it can be something simple like that. It doesn't have to be that you're like reinventing the wheel. So step 8 is to be constant in your vision and to evaluate for improvement. I like to evaluate every week. I ask my parents for feedback. I ask my kids for feedback. I ask myself for feedback. And that just getting into that habit of being of continuous improvement is so beneficial, and it really helps you be responsive instead of reactive. And it also helps you communicate with all the stakeholders, And so, we talk about these things in business a lot, and we don't really bring it home. And it really is important. So think about what is working, what's not working. How can slight tweaks mean big improvements? Like something as simple as having one place where you write the date every day can be an incredible resource for kids, So it's a lot of times it's very minor things. I just keep a notebook with me all the time so that I can write things down and, figure out how to integrate them later. And most of the time it doesn't happen until the weekend. So, it's all about little steps and pieces, but just be vigilant and always trying to take that to the next level, and you'll continuously improve, and so will your kids, and so will the situation.
So it's kind of like if you're thinking what's working, what's not working, and what tweaks you can make, the questions you could ask your students is, what did you really like that happened this week? And what wasn't so great about this week? And then you can analyze that for the tweaks, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you're working with a group of other parents, you can do the same thing with parents, right now with pods, it's very difficult. I've seen a lot of people having difficulties trying trying to mitigate COVID concerns, trying to mitigate different educational styles and things like that when people are working in groups homeschooling. And I think this like evaluation loop and like continuous feedback is the only way to really make it work, because you're going to have to continuously adjust, just like we're having to adjust right now to like the numbers of COVID cases going up in a lot of places, particularly here in Illinois. You know, we have to be responsive, you know, and reacting is not the thing to do, because none of us are at our best doing that. And for sure, kids don't respond best to that. So let's go on to the next one, Dee. So the takeaways are thus, every child and family has different needs. So I really hope that you guys if you take one thing from this, I want you to take that it's okay for you to like look at your own family's needs right now and just attend to those. Of course, we need to be compassionate and loving towards everyone else. We always want to have, you know, our eyes on creating more equity and inclusion for everyone around us as well. But it's also okay for you to support your own family. And that's what your family needs right now. So focus on that. And then within that, once you have that settled, then you can work towards these other things also. Number 2 is work to support and research the individual needs of your own family and children, which I kind of just covered also. Collaborate with other families, educators, and organizations to gain resources and troubleshoot issues that arise. You can create your own support network. And again, Be Strong Families is a tremendous resource for that also. Keep education fun and inspiring with hands-on activities and manipulatives to illustrate concepts. And also evaluate your child's educational experience weekly and let them weigh in. That's a huge part is, you know, and I believe this with all my heart, that the way that I'm able to get kids to buy in is by including them constantly in what's going on. And not having this like top-down approach where it's like, I'm the teacher, I'm the leader, I'm in charge, and you guys are the students here down here. I'm like, we're a team together. We both bring different things to the table, and I need you to be able to do what I do. And that's the basis of our relationship, and it's the basis of the respect and everything else that comes with it. But it all comes from the relationship building. And it seems weird to think about that in regards to your own children, but you really are building a new relationship with them as an educator, you know, in a way that you haven't had before. Even for me as myself as an educator, I've realized this. And it's weird because I've been doing this for so long professionally. I just realized all these different gaps that were happening with my own child. So building a connection through this experience is really going to enable you to be more responsive to the changing needs of your kids and everything moving forward. And it'll create an opportunity for community in a time of relative chaos. So this can be like a really wonderful opportunity for your kids.
Tracy, this is fabulous. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to digging deeper on each of these 5. I think we could do a whole webinar on any one of these, you know?
Absolutely.
I think we probably will, because teachers' tricks for parents is going to be something that will be relevant for parents, you know, for the
now
next
and 6 months from now.
Yeah. So thank you so much. And we need to wrap it up now, because we have, you're getting a lot of love in the chat. And Dee has launched the poll. Please, before you leave, fill out the poll, everybody. And Dee, can we please get to the next slides? Tomorrow, we have Neelofer Hassan here, connecting as a parent community despite the pandemic. And that, I think, covers what Tracy was talking about in terms of support networks and how parents can get together to support each other, and also about parent engagement with schools and how parents can continue to be active in shaping the kind of educational experience in their neighborhoods. So on Monday, Alexandra and I are going to be back. We're going to switch it up. We're not going to just do the making back to school work for children and families. We're really going to be about the invitation to transformation in education that COVID's providing. and really get us all thinking about, you know, if we were meeting the goal of having every child be able to reach their potential through the education that they're being given, what would that look like? How would it transform? Samantha Peterson will be back on Tuesday to do, but this a different presentation. This one is not on Title I directly. It's on remote learning teacher challenges and how to provide hands-on learning remotely. Phyllis is back on Wednesday with a really interactive on the psychological dimensions of kids' engagement with online and hybrid learning. So join us. There's a Spanish language webinar series. Lori Sanchez, who's a regular here, helped us develop that. And we really thank her. And we're going to move forward. On the next slide, please. Yes, need to dig deeper now. Parents are expressing their frustration, so it'd be a great idea to share positive ideas and solutions. I agree. Amplify, don't forget amplify. Amplify the positive. Amplify what's going to help us build a better world post-COVID and just in general. So amplify a more perfect union, amplify community, amplify support, amplify educational access, amplify equity, amplify justice. Let's go to the next slide. And remember, this is by us for us. So if you have something you'd like to share as a webinar, please contact me. And thank you, Elda, Amplify Education. Yes, Tracy will do a deep dive Thursday. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Tracy, for being here. Always a pleasure. And look forward to seeing you all tomorrow with Nilofer. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And it's 1:01. We did pretty well.
Sorry for going over.